Welcome! This is Rebuilding Careers. I am Bonni Pomush, the CEO of Working Wardrobes, and today I am here with two amazingly successful individuals who have rebuilt their careers with Working Wardrobes. May I introduce, ladies and gentlemen, Ellie and Giovanna. So glad you're here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
You know better than anyone that at Working Wardrobes, we do everything in our power to help individuals overcome challenges and experience the power of a paycheck. What challenges have you overcome, and what was your experience with Working Wardrobes on the way to rebuilding your career?
So I was in the Air Force and then a government contractor for at least a decade of my life. And then I became a stay-at-home mom for several years. And when I left my husband, I realized that I needed a job, but I thought that I was unemployable. I thought that I would barely be able to hit minimum wage. And when I came to Working Wardrobes, I was severely underemployed. And the biggest challenge that I overcame was rebuilding my confidence, because the people at Working Wardrobes looked at my resume and they were like, I don't care about the gap. Do you see all the amazing things you've done? And it totally shifted my perspective.
I love that. One of actually the quotes on our walls here is there's always another way of looking at things, and what a great way to demonstrate that.
Definitely.
Good for you. I'm so glad that we could do that with you and be on this journey with you. That's beautiful. What about you, Giovanna?
For me, I would say my biggest challenge was kind of like what Ellie said, the lack of confidence. I felt like I was my biggest critic. So I felt like I was very underemployed, like how she would say. But coming to Working Wardrobes and getting the help and confidence with the staff here, they kind of just gave me that boost, like, hey, if anybody can do it out here, you can do it. Like, there's no other way, just pick yourself back up and just keep going, keep trying, and I did.
Oh, it makes a big difference when someone believes in us and helps us see what, like you said, to see ourselves. Oh. Our tagline is power of a paycheck. It's our way of reflecting our desire and making a really aspirational and concrete goal. How did you earn your first, not this paycheck, but your very, very first paycheck? How did you earn it? What's the story, and what lessons did you learn from earning that first paycheck?
So my very first paycheck was dog grooming. It was the best experience. I want to say I was 17 and I love dogs, so why not dog grooming? So I enjoyed it. It was the best experience, and just having that first paycheck that I worked hard for, not only worked hard for but had fun doing it, best experience.
Wow.
Best feeling.
Well, and there's something big about that lesson to learn, that you can enjoy work, that when you're doing something that speaks to your strengths and your, as you were saying, your passion, really, that it's a joy to do it.
Yes.
What about you, Ellie? What was your first paycheck story? And what'd you learn?
So I actually was a telemarketer in high school. Funny, I never realized I'd be doing that as an adult too, working in sales. And I remember, I think I spent the very first paycheck on a Subway sandwich.
Must have been a foot long.
They're really expensive. Anyway, but what I learned from that experience, they had this program where if you hit a certain percentage of sales during the week, you could switch over to a flexible schedule and set your own hours, come in when you want, leave when you want. And I learned for the first time that if I set a goal and go for it, I can achieve it like that.
And what a great reward.
Oh yeah.
It's not often in your first job that you have that kind of flexibility. Wow, that must motivate you, and you've just motivated me. That's incredible. There's a parable that also really inspires me, and it's the story about a man that sees this young boy walking along the seashore, and he's tossing these starfish back into the water, and there's just, the starfish are littered all over over the beach. And so the man says, to the young person, why are you even bothering? Like, there's just so many here, like, why? And the child says, but that one, I made a big difference for that one. And this speaks to me so much, the power of one, the power to be able to do something for a person or starfish that really changes the course of that person's history, and then this immeasurable effect of what happens next as a result of that, right? The ripple effects of that kind of change. So I'm curious, how do you experience people investing in you and in your career? Like, what has someone done to make a difference for you? How have you experienced that?
So for me, like coming here to Working Wardrobes and then getting the job, I actually, like job aside, I learned that we're not who our past is, and going forward, I'm telling all my friends, like anybody who's not happy at work, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to find career counseling, you have to come to Working Wardrobes, like you have to, and I have friends all over, so they don't necessarily have access to Working Wardrobes right now. But like telling them that there's an option and they don't have to go it alone, and now seeing other people start to shift and change, like that fills me up, just saying, hey, there's an option.
Yeah.
Because of Working Wardrobes giving me the option.
Wow. We're back to that quote on the wall. Always another perspective, opening that perspective. Wow. What about you, Giovanna?
I would say the biggest thing for me is knowing when to ask for help. That's the biggest thing for me, because in the past I didn't know how, or I knew how, but I just never worked up the confidence to ask for the help. So I think with Working Wardrobes, seeing that option, like how she said, but working myself up, like, hey, I have a voice, I can ask for that help. And then coming here and then taking that chance on me, it made the biggest difference.
Giovanna, you're making me cry. And in the best way possible. It's hard. That is not easy. It's not easy to ask for help. And huge kudos for gaining that strength and knowing and having faith that there would be an answer, and that it's okay to advocate not just for other people and starfish, but for yourself. Big stuff, big stuff. So you're experiencing now the power of a paycheck.
Yes.
What has that empowered you to be able to do? What new choices are you able to now make?
Honestly, it has broadened my mentality, just seeing that, hey, if I put enough energy, if I put enough attention to one thing, hey, it comes, a positive outcome can come out of that, and just opening up my mind to like, hey, like, this is a paycheck, yeah, I'm thankful, but imagining myself like, hey, there's bigger things out there that I can set my mind to, and there's no limit to that.
Wow. Go ahead, try.
Yeah, so mine's totally different. My kids wanted to see the new Spider-Man movie, and I was like, okay, so Friday night, and like, they're starting to turn it into this big adventure, and like, they're like, we're gonna have dinner and go to the movie, but we wanna go to the late night movie that gets out at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can take a nap in the movie, that's fine. But like, being able to take them to the movie in our pajamas and slippers with blankets and stuffed animals and have this nice meal. I don't even remember where we ate. We just had fun together, and getting to experience their excitement, like that made every minute that I worked to earn that totally worth it.
Oh, you brought a memory. It's a completely irreplaceable memory with your family.
Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's really beautiful. You're talking about the movies, and it reminds me of kind of the starfish piece, and we, you remember this movie? It was called Paying It Forward. And the concept of the movie was essentially a school project that this young boy takes on, and the project he chooses is essentially like, how is he going to change the world one person at a time? And he's going to do good deeds for someone, and the only catch is, keep paying it forward. And this concept really resonates, obviously, with all of the things that we're talking about. In the film, he gets his assignment, and his ultimate goal is to change the world, really. But he does this one person, one positive thing, one micro movement at a time. How do you connect with and embody this ideal of contributing to something greater and one option, one choice at a time?
I think for myself is remembering my lowest, remembering when I was at my lowest, and remembering the people who at my lowest were there, made the biggest difference for me because I couldn't pick myself up. So those people who were there for me made the biggest difference and gave me that, like, hey, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm feeling low, but hey, let me shake it off. Like, life goes on, So always remembering those lowest times, whenever I can say something, do something, whatever it is for someone, even if I don't know them, to me, like, you can save a life, so.
And that's just it, you just don't know,
Yeah,
right? You don't
never
know.
know.
Wow, amazing. What about you, Ellie?
So I am in this space, especially after being helped by this organization. Like, I just have, it's like my cup is overflowing, and I just want to give to as many people as I can. And so now I'm going throughout life seeking opportunities to pay it forward and look for other people. And I guess I've learned along the way that paying it back really doesn't do anything, but paying it forward to other people is definitely a big thing. And like you said, being at your lowest time, I have journaled a lot of how I've felt through this experience. And so when I'm in a position years down the line to possibly hire people for my company, I want to be able to go back to the feelings I've been experiencing now and recognize that in other people so that I can give them a leg up as well.
Oh, ladies, you are like speaking to my heart. I need a break. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, more inspiration from the incredible Ellie and Giovanna. For now, this message. Welcome back to Rebuilding Careers. My name is Bonni Pomush, and I am here with Ellie and Giovanna talking about their experience re-empowered with the power of a paycheck and a career rebuilt. I would love to hear from each of you, just to share with us a bit about the role that you're in at your new companies and a little bit about the company you're working at.
So I'm currently working at a electronic manufacturing company, and my role in that company, I'm actually working 3 different departments, which in the beginning I'm like, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to do this. But with that confidence of just getting hired, I told myself, like, hey, I can do this, why not? If I fail, at least I tried. So just going in there, yeah, I got the hang of one department, which gave them and myself the confidence of going in and helping another, and from there I helped another. So I'm currently working 3 different departments, and I love it.
Wow. We're back to that, like the movie, right? You
Yeah.
help 3 people, you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
3 departments. What about you, Ellie? What kind of work are you doing, and for what kind of company?
So I actually, I'm a cold caller, and I think that there's a lesson in that title, because just because it sounds like something that might be not fun, like I'm actually a sales expert within the company, and even the CEOs, at the IT and cybersecurity company that I'm working for, are like, you can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, but the job description is cold caller. But even from day one, like, I walked in there and they look at the experience I have had in the past. And so they'll say something and I'll be like, oh, have you thought about this? And the CEOs are like, oh, yeah, we're gonna implement that. So day one that started, and I'm like, okay, never would I have thought that past resume would have value now, and it totally does, even though I'm just a cold caller, so.
I love this also, this sense of empowerment that the company's leadership is giving with inviting your input and wanting to implement your solutions and ideas. That must feel incredible.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are both navigating career transitions, and I also just navigated one when I joined Working Wardrobes in November. And I think transitions always offer the opportunity to look at things also in a new way. And I'm curious, what wisdom did you gain from your transition experience that you can impart to all of us?
I think the confidence, how I'm always saying confidence, because with the new transition, I doubted myself. I just kept telling myself, oh my God, no. I was so nervous. I was a nervous wreck. And in the beginning, I was kind of telling myself, okay, well, just settle for anything. And I had to shake that off because no, like, yeah, it was a transition, but hey, I deserve good. I deserve better too, you know? So after putting in my resume, like in so many jobs, you know, I kept telling myself, don't settle. And then boom, my current company called, and it was for me like, hey, this is what I want. So after getting hired, I'm like, whoa, like I gained that big confidence, like a confidence booster.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also like so, trying to think of like the right word, but it's just very affirming.
Yes.
To be chosen and to be, your skills and what you bring to the table are valued. Mm-hmm. What about you, Ellie? What did you learn from this transition?
So definitely to overcome limiting beliefs, and confidence is a really big one. But being a stay-at-home mom for several years in a relationship where I wasn't exactly encouraged and was not valued, to, like I said earlier, walking into my first day and the CEO being like, that's fabulous, we're using that. It's like a total mindset shift. And I know like specifically for probably stay-at-home moms, but anybody, because stay-at-home mom is my experience, we get this story in our head that we're not valuable, and what we have to say, our ideas are not valuable. And my encouragement to others and my experience as well is put it out there, open your mouth, and you'll learn that those limiting beliefs are totally false.
You can gather new evidence. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes,
Like, give it a shot, and you will start to see a new truth.
Yes.
Wow. I am blown away and impressed and amazing. I'm just drinking you both in. So thank you. Wow. I'm curious, we hear a lot in the news right now about just so many job openings, so many positions not filled. I'm just curious, are your employers having a hard time finding candidates in particular roles? Like, what is your experience, observation of this, what we're hearing on the news in your companies?
I am actually finding an interesting trend through a couple of different jobs I've worked in the past year, that people will not show up on the first day of work. And the other mindset that I think is missing is people look at the position they're filling as just a job and not seeing it from the business owner's perspective. So like not showing up on the first day, sure, that sounds like you're just ghosting somebody. But in reality, they spent time and effort doing all the things to get you in the position. Oh my gosh, blank, hold on. The other thing that I'm noticing with the business owner mentality, people they're looking for the paycheck, and what they're forgetting, and I think business owners are really struggling to find people to understand if you don't do your job to the best of your ability, the employer loses money, and so that position goes away. So they, at least from the places I've been, they're struggling to find people who are really there to invest in the company, not just collect a paycheck and go home.
Fascinating. So an investment is a really good word. What about you, Giovanna? What are you seeing?
Honestly, what I've seen in my company would be like long-term, I guess, employees. Like they'll get like a new hire for maybe a couple months, and then boom, two lost, you know? So I think more of a like consistent employment kind of.
Interesting, two different perspectives, but similar situation where there's a lack of investment and high turnover.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thinking about these people looking for jobs, what was the most difficult part of your job search?
I think mine would be like the location, the commute. Finding one like reasonably like near where I was living. But other than that, honestly, that was like the biggest thing that I can remember.
What about you, Ellie? What was your biggest challenge?
So, as a mom of 4 with no other assistants in my house, being able to find something that's flexible and reasonable, not saying like missing all the time, but finding employers who understand sometimes I have to leave for the kids, sometimes I have to leave for myself, and kind of rolling with it, that was challenging.
This is a really interesting dynamic, and I think we're seeing a lot of this, we call it the she session, and through COVID, we've experienced a lot of these unique dynamics in the workplace that have adapted, and I think at an exponential rate, it has changed the culture of workplaces to be more flexible and adaptable to life. I mean, for so much of this time, you know, many people, like, their children were at home from school, and that made working out of the home next to impossible. So this is, you're spot on, and I think there are many people in that same position that clearly need to be working where you're working, or for people like who you work for.
Yes.
You know, we're rounding out this first quarter of the year, and I just asked you about the biggest challenge. So I'm going to ask you the opposite question, which is, I like to make a practice. I totally have adopted this mentality from James Clear and Atomic Habits, which is the end of every quarter to really look back and take a moment of reflection and review. How did that quarter go for you? What worked? What didn't work? What results did you get? How's it going, right? And how is that measuring up to my intentions and my goals and what it was I was setting out to do over the last 3 months? So I would love to hear from each of you, what are some of the biggest, you know, looking back, what are some of the big accomplishments? What were some of the areas, you know, do this review and reflect with us aloud.
I think for me, I came here looking for a paycheck and thinking that that was my big goal. And then realizing that I need to prioritize things, including my health. And it's literally the first time in my entire life that I'm starting to make my health and well-being my biggest goal.
Foundation, right?
Yes.
Can't do anything else if you're not healthy.
Correct.
And we're back to COVID lessons. I mean, wow, yeah. Can't do much without your health.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about you, Giovanna, as you reflect on this quarter?
I would say family is like the biggest thing. I get so busy and like work, and I'm like, oh, I'm too tired, and oh, I should call, but oh, I'll call later. You know, things like that where I kind of allow myself like, oh, I'll do it later. I'll push it off, and just realizing like, hey, you know. You have a loving family, you know, it doesn't kill you to call, to text, like, hey, you know. Not only that, I would say my education, because I'm like still working on my AA, like that's something I have been working for. And I think I kind of like just kind of got lazy in a sense, because I'm like, oh, whatever, I'm young, I'll do it later. But no, like after kind of like reflecting, I'm like, no, like who cares? Like if that's something that you really want, get it.
That's honestly, that's a hard thing to do too, is to decide what you want.
Yeah.
When my oldest daughter was getting ready to start high school, she goes, I need to hurry up and decide what I'm going to do with my life. I'm like, girl, I still don't know what I'm going to do with my life.
What do you want to do with your life today?
Yes, yes.
Wow. This is incredible. You know, each of you touched on some topics that I want to share a little bit personally too. So this year, I wanted to make a really intentional effort to set meta goals and make my choices a lot simpler by virtue of, does it support those goals? And if it's in the direction of those goals, then yes is easy. If it's in the direction of 2 out of 3 goals, yes. But if it's not one of my goals, the answer is most likely no. And that principle, if you will, we did it as an exercise, and you may have even seen this. I've seen great teachers use this as a lesson in school for time management. And what they do is they take a jar, and they fill the jar with, the jar represents time. And they fill the jar with sand, the really small stuff, the really granular stuff. And then with pebbles. And then there's not enough room for the big rocks. And the idea here is, if you put the big rocks, the most important things in life, in the jar first, then you can add in the pebbles, the medium-sized stuff, which also actually does leave room for the small stuff, the sand. So this year, our entire team here at Working Wardrobes you even saw the jar, right? Where each of us wrote on a rock what our big rocks were going to be. Health, totally about health and making choices that contribute to optimizing my health. 2 was relationships, important relationships, meaningful relationships. I want to invest in those. And 3rd is about contribute. I want to contribute and be a contributor too. Fill in the blank, right? It can be work, it can be play, but I want to bring what I have to offer to the table. So I'm curious for each of you, what are your big rocks for 2022? What are the biggest priorities for you?
I think, kind of like how I shared earlier, I think my biggest rocks right now are family, education, and ultimately my career.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
What about you, Ellie?
So, very backwards from how I've lived most of my life, my very first big rock has to be me. And that's, in fact, I was just talking about this yesterday, how backwards it is, because as moms, we're like, the kids have to go first. And I know the oxygen mask and the airplane thing, it's so cliche, but with a cancer diagnosis, if I'm not here, they don't have a mom. And like, that's been the hugest lesson, is putting myself number 1. And then they're number 2. And a paycheck, I almost want to call it a pebble right now, because it supports the life, but it's replaceable. I'm not replaceable, my kids are not replaceable.
Those are big rocks, big rocks. Wow. And this is also an amazing way to be a teacher and a leader by example to your children, right? That maybe you didn't learn this lesson, but maybe your kids will as a result of this.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm thinking about the different ways we advocate, and you know, I'm thinking about you advocating for your kids to make choices and to know, you know, with an informed choice, education's important. I want to pursue that goal. It's an option. I can choose. And of course, even at high school, I can choose. There are just so many opportunities in our life to impact other people in a positive way. And wow. I'm also thinking about the ways that our identity and who we are. You just shared that you have a cancer diagnosis, and nobody can see that when they look at you. I'm curious to know, in what ways do you identify with, I want to say, like, underserved, historically not shared, maybe taboo? You know, what are the parts of you that, I'm not asking this well, let me kind of back up a little bit. I should be a little bit vulnerable like you were, Ellie, and say that I'm talking to you as a Jewish lesbian, And you can't see that, I don't wear that name tag, right? But that is an identity that when you find out that about me and it comes up in conversation, I feel an automatic sense of obligation to not only represent, but to advocate on behalf of what are typically others, like people who are othered. And I'm curious, do you identify with that in any way? I kind of just put you on the spot there with the cancer thing, and it may not be that, but do you identify with that in any way? And what do you do as a result of that? Like, how does that change your behavior?
For sure. So a single mom with more than 2 children is definitely, it feels like an underserved group. And then with a health diagnosis, like whatever it is, cancer, chronic pain, like it could be chronic migraines, been there, like it could be anything. And we get this idea in our head that employers are going to look at us and go, oh, they're not reliable. But I think it's the employers who need to shift and say, no, it's not that they're not reliable, it's they really have this thing, whether it's the family or the health, that you will, as an employer, be able to nurture someone who will stay much longer, like you were talking about earlier, if you can adapt to what those groups need in order to be successful. And I know that like there's the disability accommodations things, but like looking at me, you don't see that I need like something particular. Sometimes it's just the time that needs to be worked around. So that's definitely something that going forward I want to work on educating other people about for my little underserved groups.
It's interesting too to be able to advocate through the employer track, which is, I wasn't even thinking that, but you're spot on. It's not even just the one-on-one interpersonal, it can be systemic change, yeah. What about you, Giovanna?
Honestly, for myself, what I would think about is maybe someone being not underskilled, but not being trained, I guess, in a position, kind of being a little bit more open-minded about that in a like work in a work area, kind of like taking a chance on someone like, hey, they don't know how to do this, but they can be trained. Like, let's take that chance, like, hey, let me train you and let's see how you do, and kind of give you that chance to kind of work yourself up, I guess, in the workforce.
Wow, what's really powerful about that too is what you're honing in on is I have an ability. I may not have experience with whatever that platform is or that task is, but I am a good learner, I'm adaptable, I'm trainable, all of these pieces. I really relate to this with this sort of definition of there's 2 types of people in the world, AC people and BC people. This is people who were born after computers and before computers. And it comes out, it's the same idea that, it doesn't matter if you've had it your whole life or something recent, that no matter what, these are particular ways that we can interact with each other with an openness and an sort of openness to experiment and see what you're capable of. Wow. So I'm curious, like, how can you advocate on behalf of that in your life?
I think kind of like taking that step and voicing it, like, hey, I've been interested in whatever position or whatever department. Hey, I'm interested. Is there a way I can move up and be trained there? Or what's the policy in that or something? Just taking that step and voicing it.
I feel like you just took us full circle, which is back to having the confidence to be able to ask for help, which, I mean, really, Giovanna, that is so powerful of a message, that it's okay to ask for help. And then this other piece, which is the confidence that you've been talking about, the confidence to do it, right? To ask for the help, to go and say, how can I learn this skill? How can I be a part of exploring this particular whatever it is? Ladies, I am so, again, I expected to be, but I'm even more so inspired by both of you. I am beyond grateful that we have been able to not only share this moment today, but to know that that Working Wardrobes has been a part of your journey in any way. And I know that you will advocate for others, because you both talked about this in different ways, that you want to make sure other people know that there is help and you're not in this alone. I'm going to kind of flip the script on you and ask you, what's your mega wish for Working Wardrobes? We kind of have a genie in a bottle that granted wishes for you, right? So what are the wishes that you have for us?
I think to be able to help Working Wardrobes kind of be a bigger organization and help in even more locations to even more people.
Okay.
Same, actually.
Really? You're going to say the same thing?
Yes, so I have friends all over, actually I have friends all over the world
Mhm.
because of my experiences in the past. And there's career counseling centers, but they don't have the heart that Working Wardrobes has. And I would just love to see more locations all over the place, or some sort of, like, we're in the day and age of virtual stuff. Like, if this organization and the heart and soul of the way you guys do things could be everywhere, I'd be sending people in droves, and my friends would be sending people in droves, and then the government would make a special grant just for Working Wardrobes. And see, that's my big vision. So
Yes! I'm in. Yes, it is amazing, and what an opportunity to be able, again, to be on the path. We talk about we build bridges. We build bridges over barriers so that people can get from point A to point B. And I've only ever heard one other person articulate it similarly to what you just shared, Ellie, which was a client that said, I went to the government office and got help, but when I came to Working Wardrobes, I got help with love.
yes.
Yeah. Well, I love that you two were able to share your experience with us. Thank you for letting us be a part of yours, and I hope to grant these Working Wardrobes wishes as soon as possible, because we know that we can make the difference in people's lives. Well, this has been our next episode of Rebuilding Careers. I want to thank again Ellie and Giovanna for being our incredible guests today. I certainly learned something and will continue to reflect on this conversation probably for the rest of my life. So thank you very, very much for this opportunity.
Thank you.